What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton just discovered a problem at Monza so big at Ferrari that it could completely change the 2026 season? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. Because what happened in that test was not normal. A car 50% redesigned, an inexplicable stop in the middle of the session, and most worryingly, a performance that seems brilliant, but only at times. Are we facing the fastest Ferrari in recent years, or the most deceptive SF-26 the Scuderia has ever had? Stay until the end, because what Hamilton saw at Monza reveals something that Ferrari didn't want anyone to understand, and it could explain absolutely everything. The context in which all this occurs is absolutely key to understanding the magnitude of the revelation. Ferrari does not arrive at Monza in a dominant position by any means, but quite the opposite. It arrives under pressure with internal doubts and with a significant deficit against its main rivals. After the first races of the season, the team had already accumulated a considerable disadvantage in the Constructors' Championship, making it clear that the SF-26, in its initial version, was not meeting the expectations that had been generated during the winter. In this scenario, the Scuderia makes a radical decision: momentarily stop the progressive evolution and commit to a massive change. What they bring to Monza is not a simple improvement, it is practically a reconstruction of the car. Modifying about 50% of a car in the middle of the season is not an update, it is a declaration of urgency. It is the implicit recognition that the original concept had profound limitations that could not be corrected with minor adjustments. And this is where Lewis Hamilton comes in, because his role at this point goes far beyond simply driving. Hamilton arrives at Ferrari as a figure capable of interpreting the car, reading its reactions, and above all, detecting patterns that others might miss. His experience with different aerodynamic philosophies and technical concepts makes him a key tool in understanding whether this new SF-26 has a real basis or if it is simply a sophisticated patch. During the morning, the work falls to Charles Leclerc, who completes the initial allowed mileage. Their laps serve as a first reference, as a baseline on which Ferrari begins to build its analysis. But it's in the afternoon when everything changes, when Hamilton gets in the car and starts pushing the real limits of the pack. It's not just about setting times, but about exploring behaviors. Braking, changes of direction, traction, stability in fast corners. Every detail begins to paint a more complete image of the SF-26. The first sensations are deceptively positive. The car shows a clear improvement in top speed and aerodynamic efficiency, something that is immediately noticeable on a circuit like Monza. There are moments where the SF-26 seems competitive, even capable of standing up to any rival. But in Formula One, performance is not measured in isolated peaks, but in consistency, and that is where the cracks begin to appear. Hamilton begins to notice that the car does not respond the same on each lap. There are variations in behavior that should not exist in a car that aspires to fight for the championship. Confidence is not built, it is broken lap by lap when the driver cannot predict how the car will react in the next corner. And that is the first big sign that something is not right. Then the moment that changes the test reading occurs, the prolonged stop in the pits. 43 minutes in a filming day is not normal. It is not part of a standard program. Although Ferrari does not give explanations, the context is too obvious. When you introduce such a large package of updates, any failure can reveal integration problems between systems, and that is much more serious than a simple miscalibrated adjustment. From there, the test stops being a validation and becomes an investigation. Each lap, Hamilton no longer seeks pure performance, but rather answers. Where does the car work? Where does it fail? How narrow is your optimal window? And what is beginning to become clear is that the SF-26 has too limited an operating range. When everything is in place, the car is fast. But when conditions change even slightly, performance drops noticeably. This type of behavior is especially dangerous in a long season. You can't depend on perfect conditions every weekend. You can't build a strategy around a car that only works in an ideal scenario. And Hamilton knows this better than anyone. At the end of the day, the times may seem encouraging, even better than your partner's, but the real analysis goes far beyond the stopwatch. What Hamilton has discovered is not a matter of tenths, it is a matter of concept. The SF-26 is not a balance car, it is an extreme car. And that is the real problem that Ferrari exposes at Monza. They are not just chasing performance, they are trying to tame a car that, in its current state, is as capable of shining as it is of collapsing. Ferrari had opted for an aggressive technical revolution with profound changes to the front wing, the floor, and multiple key areas of the car, seeking a direct improvement in downforce and efficiency. On paper, the data was positive. There was even talk of gains of up to 2 to 3% in aerodynamic efficiency in certain sectors. But on the track, that improvement came with a side effect that completely changes the balance of the car, a dangerously narrow operating window. Hamilton begins to detect that the car not only depends on the setup, but that it overreacts to any minimal change. A slight variation in temperature, brake balance, or corner entry causes completely different responses. This isn't just difficult to pilot, it's structurally unpredictable. What he finds is a brutal technical contradiction. The SF-26 generates a lot of downforce when everything is aligned, but loses that stability as soon as it goes out of the ideal range. It's as if Ferrari had built a car designed for perfect conditions in a sport where those conditions almost never exist. From that point on, Hamilton's reading changes completely. You are no longer validating improvements, you are identifying limits. And those limits are not small. They are structural. The car suffers in fast transitions, shows hesitation when cornering, when the aerodynamic flow is not perfect, and, most critically, it does not convey confidence to the driver in extreme situations. This has a direct consequence that goes beyond Monza. A car like this is not only difficult to optimize over a weekend, but complicates absolutely everything. Qualifying, tire management, race strategy, even the driver's ability to attack as much as possible in key moments. And this is where Hamilton's true revelation is born. He doesn't say it out loud, but it is clear in his way of working during the test. Ferrari doesn't have a pure performance problem. It has a behavioral problem. Because a fast car can win races, but an unpredictable car loses them. The SF-26 is beginning to show that its performance depends too much on getting the perfect combination of variables right, and that in a long season is practically unsustainable. You can't build a championship on the basis of if everything goes perfectly. Hamilton understands it right then and there. He understands that the problem is not that Ferrari is far away, is that he does not know exactly why he is sometimes close. And that is possibly the worst situation a Formula One team can be in. While from the outside the times may seem competitive, on the inside the reality is much more complex. Ferrari has created a car with potential, but without a solid foundation to guarantee consistency. And when that happens, each future improvement stops being a safe evolution and becomes a risk. At this point in the test, Hamilton is no longer looking for answers about the SF-26's performance on time, but about something much more important, whether this car can sustain real evolution throughout the season. And the conclusion he begins to reach is as clear as it is disturbing. Ferrari has built a car that does not scale well. This changes absolutely everything, because in Formula One, development is everything. The fastest car in race 1 does not win, the one that evolves best until race 23 wins. And the SF-26, as shown at Monza, leaves signs that each future improvement could be limited by the very nature of the car. The problem is not just that it has a narrow operating window, it is that any attempt to widen it could compromise areas where it is already strong. That is to say, Ferrari is trapped in its own concept. If they try to make it more stable, they may lose performance. If they seek more performance, they increase instability. Hamilton detects it in how the car responds to changes during the test. There is no linear progression. There is no clear direction for improvement. Each adjustment seems to open a new mystery. And that, in development terms, is a critical sign. It means the car doesn't have a predictable foundation on which to build. This is where the revelation becomes final. Ferrari isn't just fighting Mercedes or the rest of the field, it's fighting the limits of its own design. And this connects directly to what comes next. Because the Monza test was not an isolated event, it was the prelude to the next block of the season, with completely different circuits where consistency is everything. If the SF-26 already shows these weaknesses in a controlled environment, what will happen when it has to face changing conditions, complex strategies, and real racing pressure? Hamilton understands that the real risk is not losing a tenth, it is losing confidence in the car. And when that happens, everything collapses. The pilot cannot attack in the same way, the team hesitates in strategic decisions, and the margin of error is reduced to a minimum. The most shocking thing is that at the same time, Ferrari has shown that it has speed. And that is what makes this situation even more dangerous, because it creates an illusion of competitiveness that can hide the real problem for a few weekends until the context changes and everything falls apart again. This is the exact point where the SF-26 SF-26 is completely exposed. Not because of what Ferrari said, but because of what Hamilton showed with his driving and his reading of the car. A car capable of setting competitive times, but incapable for now of maintaining a constant fight for the championship. And so, what began as a test to confirm improvements ends up becoming a silent warning. Ferrari has potential, yes, but it also has a structural problem that could define its entire 2026 season. Because at this point, the big question is no longer whether Ferrari can be fast. Ferrari has not failed to create speed. The car is fast, it has peaks of performance capable of exciting, even deceiving at first glance. But Formula One is not one with isolated flashes, is one with consistency, with predictability, with a solid base that allows it to evolve without fear. And that is exactly what SF-26 is missing today. The big revelation is not in the Monza times, nor in who is faster, nor even in the improvements introduced. It's something much deeper. Ferrari has built a car that depends too much on perfection. And in this sport, perfection does not exist. Hamilton has seen it before anyone else. He has felt that the car can be brilliant on one lap and completely vulnerable on the next. He has identified that the problem is not one of adjustments, but of concept. And when a driver of his level comes to that conclusion so early, it usually means that the road to a solution will not be short. This leaves Ferrari in a critical situation, because now they not only need to improve, they need to understand. They need to decide if they continue to push this concept hoping to master it, or if they accept that the SF-26 was born with limitations that could accompany them all season. And meanwhile, the championship does not wait. So what Monza left was not confirmation that Ferrari is back, but rather a silent warning that they are not yet ready to have a real fight for the title. Because in the end, the real question all of this leaves is not how fast Ferrari can be. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.